I mean, basically what the product does is a pH balancer for the gut. And then obviously anyone that studies animal health and things like that know that the gut, is an important part of the animal. I mean, it controls a lot of things. So, it goes back to that, preparing that animal to accept, vaccines, treatments, things like that. We think that is an added benefit, to allow that animal to accept those things and to succeed once, after it's given.
Welcome to the Beef Podcast. I'm your host, Brandy Buzzard, and it's my pleasure to bring you the latest trends and issues from the best and brightest minds in the beef industry. Today, we are joined by Austin Klores, General Manager of Graham Land and Cattle, a feed yard and backgrounding yard in Gonzales, Texas. We've got a lot to talk about today, all things backgrounding, feed, cattle, all sorts of things. And on this episode, sponsored by Pro Earth Animal Health. So with that, let's dive right in. Welcome to the podcast, Austin. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing pretty good. I'm inside today because the wind is blowing 30 miles an hour. So I'm going to wait till that dies down a bit before I go out and do anything. But thank you for being here today with us. To start off with, I know that you've had a long career in cattle feeding and you do a lot down there in Gonzales. But for those of us who haven't met you before, could you just bring us up to speed on your background, how you got started in the beef industry and cattle, and kind of your career thus far, how you ended up at Graham?
Kind of had a long, different kind of path, I guess you'd say. I grew up in a small town up near College Station. My dad, he always had, 75 cows or so, just a small cow calf type deal. But I mean, as I got older, going into high school and things like that, I realized that I, wanted to be around cattle every day. And I actually played tennis growing up, and I went to A&M and played tennis at A&M, and but studied animal science and ag leadership there. And knowing that once I got out, I would be headed hopefully into this industry. And ever since I graduated, I got a job here and kind of made a career out of it. So graduated in 2012 at A&M, and then came on here and got a job, and just been here ever since. Started riding pins and just slowly worked up and ran the feed mill for a little while, and just kind of learned every aspect of the business, and just kind of here we are.
Is stress affecting your bottom line? Even routine handling, inclement weather, weaning, and dietary changes can significantly lower the rumen pH, causing cortisol levels to spike. Cortisol not only compromises the immune system, but also suppresses normal appetite and feed consumption. The solution? Cattle Active. Increase production and reduce the impacts of stress on your cattle for cents a day. Cattle Active restores the balance naturally. Want to learn more how a feeding program including Cattle Active can improve both profits and herd health? Visit us today at proearthanimalhealth.com. Be proactive with Cattle Active.
I can honestly say we've never had a tennis player on the podcast before, so that is a fun new thing. But I mean, starting at Graham and then working your way through up to as a general manager, like that's had to provide you with like a really well-rounded knowledge of all of the things that go into managing a feed yard, I'm assuming.
Very much so. And I mean, I can't imagine, I couldn't imagine, just getting a job like this out of college or even having not been through it, because I mean, there's so many things that learned throughout that period, and then even dealing with each department and all those things that, you go back to those experiences and those things that you learned over that time, and you can really relate to the concerns that those employees have or what's going on, because you've seen it. I mean, you lived it and you saw it and you did it every single day, and so it makes it extremely beneficial to have been in all those situations, and now I guess leading each one of them.
I have been on innumerable feed yards. Like my family didn't own one or anything like that, but I've been in a lot of them. I did some research in grad school on a feed yard. My dad used to manage one, so I'm familiar with them and comfortable, but I got to imagine that not everybody takes the same path that you have. I'm guessing that some people come in one role as maybe a nutritionist or running the feed mill, and they do that for a long time. So it seems like a rare occasion for you to have gotten like all the pieces and kind of understand how all that works. And that must make you a real asset to the owners there.
No, I agree. It was a blessing for sure.
Yeah. Well, because you are the general manager, I can only imagine that you have to put out all sorts of fires. But like, what kind of challenges has, this role thrown your way over the past, I don't know, 2 or so years, 3 years, something like that?
Everything you can possibly imagine. I mean, from weather, you've got to deal with Mother Nature, weather events, and then obviously, all that goes with that, with the cattle. Then you have, everyday health, cattle health that you're, constantly battling. Then you have people, which is probably one of the most difficult. I mean, granted, we work in an industry where a lot of, I would give them a pat on the back, because a lot of people in this industry, you don't do it unless you kind of care about, what you're doing. So we do have that benefit on our side. But I mean, just dealing with a lot of people every day can be hectic, and making everybody get on the same page. And then, customers, dealing with customers and their needs, just trying to tie it all together. It gets, it can be a lot. Let's say that. I mean, you're never completed for the day or even ever. I mean, it's nonstop. So.
I looked on the map before this episode at where Gonzales was. And for those who've never been there, which I have not, but it's not in North Texas. It's down there in the southern end. What kind of cattle are you guys feeding? Are you got primarily cattle, like eared cattle, or everything maybe has a little bit of ear? Do you got continental? Kind of what kind of things you got there on feed?
Yeah, I mean, I would say majority of the cattle, are going to have Brahman influence in them. I mean, from a quarter to half. I mean, on the majority, I would say. We do, over the years, we've done a lot here with Wagyu influenced cattle. So we got quite a few of those still, which they stand the heat pretty well. But mostly, a quarter to half Brahman influenced type cattle would be, the majority of what we handle.
If we keep having summer, I live in southeast Kansas, so it's hot and humid here. Not to be compared to Gonzales, because that's a different level of hot and humidity down there for you guys, but hot and humid for Kansas. And man, every year about the middle of August, I'm like, man, we got to get a little bit more heat tolerance or something like that, because those even our red-hided cows are shaded up in the middle of August. So so right now the cattle market is the highest we've ever seen. I'm sure you're well aware of that. How are you guys handling the market right now as you're trying to fill bunk space?
Yeah, so I mean, we're doing, tons of different things. I mean, it has slowed down somewhat as far as, just the numbers. I mean, because multiple reasons. I mean, they're so expensive. So I mean, credit lines don't go as far as they used to, and obviously you have, some fear. Some people have a little fear and different things like that, as far as, hey, we're so high, I don't want to get all this money out there and, be at risk and things like that. And so, different things. But I mean, we're just adjusting and doing a few different things. We're preconditioning a few cattle for some places, and then also, doing some cow feeding and different things like that. But just trying to, piece it all together. But
for our listening audience, because our audience is all over the United States, all over the world, honestly, we have an international audience. Could you just briefly explain what preconditioning is for us?
So preconditioning, I mean, like basically, my explanation would be like, taking a a lot of basically the sale barn cattle down here, which I consider high risk, a lot of them are taken off their the cows and literally taken to the sale barn that day. You buy them and bring them back. They haven't been weaned, majority of them, anything like that. So basically, it's the process of grouping together these calves, basically weaning them, getting them over all that stress and getting some vaccines in them, things like that, and getting them healthy and getting them ready to be whatever their next step is. Some of these cattle are big, so they may go to a feed yard or stay here in the feed yard and be fed, or they may go to grass or turn out in the growing programs that we got here. So basically, you're just getting their health right and getting them on their feet and getting them ready for that next step in their process.
Thank you. Because like I said, not everybody is going to, be familiar with that because we've got an international audience. You said that you guys will get some sale barn cattle in, but then you're probably getting cattle from people who are, they've got a cow herd, they're 45, 60-day weaning, sending them to you, they've got all their vaccinations and they're dewormed and all that. Do you see with this, like with the market, are you seeing more people retaining ownership, or are they more willing to just sell outright and not have to deal with it after they hit the yard because they don't want to deal with the risk? Or is it kind of been the same over the past few years? I mean, have you noticed any changes?
I would say definitely people are selling. I mean, there's a lot of people selling now that, that have fed previously, just because the prices are so high. I mean, they don't want to risk holding them and losing any value. So they for a feed yard manager, you want to obviously see the cattle come here and get fed, but as a producer, they see the dollars and at the end of the day for them, it's the bottom line and whether they're going to profit, how they're going to make the most money. And sometimes that's the way they think they're going to do it. So that's the route they go. But definitely seen, more of that here with what the cattle are costing.
Do you think here in, I don't know, maybe 3 years or so, when the market swings back, do you think people you'll see more people retaining ownership at that point? They'll like switch back to it, or do you think they'll stick with what they're doing now?
I think it'll be mixed. I think some will, some won't. Maybe just depends on the cycle. I mean, you got people like some people with the tax thing, selling. They may stick on that program because then if they double out and sell cattle, if they're going to end up to where they get their cattle, like they're selling, two groups of cattle in the same year or whatever, then their income gets thrown off. So it just kind of depends on their situation or what have you. But I mean, I could definitely see, some of it going back to it.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Managing when you're marketing them based on your tax implication, that's a really fair point. We in the past maybe 3 years, maybe 4, we've been running grass cattle that we bought like in December or January, bought 5 weights, and then we graze them and sell them in August. And we've never retained ownership because like I need that stress to not be like, when they leave, I don't want to worry about them. I don't want to wonder if, oh man, one's going to have bad luck in the feed yard or something like that. And so I understand those people who you're saying are selling them and the risk. I am one of those people. I don't want that risk of one of them being, kicking the bucket on me. And then there goes that profit. So I can kind of understand that for sure. You mentioned you were talking about in the preconditioning program with bringing everything, getting it vaccinated and stuff like that. And then for us, we are a seed stock operation. So everything, the few head that are not seed stock, they get vaccinated and dewormed and with everything else anyway. But when you are receiving cattle there at the yard, what kind of, animal health measures are you taking when they arrive? Like, are they processed immediately when they come off the truck? And what are you guys doing to them when they get there?
So, we do so many different things. I mean, as far as like you talked about, obviously getting ranch cattle. So those are kind of a different approach. And then we get, straight sale barn cattle. And we may, us personally or people we contact may buy them, and they may trickle in 8, 10, 12 at a time, or someone else may buy them and put them together and send them to us in 100 head groups or whatever. So each one of those is going to be approached differently for us because of timelines and things like that. But I mean, as a general overall, I mean, typically, when the cattle come in, and we would consider them high risk, which majority would fall in that category that we're handling. We're gonna rest the cattle at least 24 hours. So if they come in, we have big receiving pens that have large hay bunks and big giant water troughs where everything can get to it, and all that stuff's cleaned and maintained daily, so that those cattle are getting here and getting hydrated and getting set up to receive the program that's designed for them. But I mean, I think that's probably, in my opinion, one of the most important things as far as the preconditioning setup. Everybody wants to focus on what are you giving them, what medicines or vaccines or and all those things, and before you even start digging into that, you have to look at the cattle and say, what can I do to prepare these cattle to accept all these things that I'm about to give them. And hydration, in my opinion, is one of the number one things that you can focus on. So having it available and giving them time. You can't put them down there on water and think by the afternoon that they're ready to be worked. So you got to give them a little time to calm down and get hydrated and things like that. But I mean, going into medicines and vaccines, I'm a little bit of a black sheep on some of those things, vaccines and different things. But we definitely use all of them. I mean, the number one question that you get from everybody is, what's the best vaccine, or what's the best medicine treatment? What's the first treatment? That's when someone finds out you work at a feed yard or work around, preconditioned cattle. That's the number one thing they ask you, and it gets annoying, to be honest with you. But because that's not where the focus should be. Mm-hmm. But each program that we have, just a rundown. So we do use modified live vaccines, blackleg vaccines, and then different vitamins, whether it be vitamin A, D, multimin, different things like that. So though it's a combination of all of that, but each program is going to be completely different.
So Austin, I know that you're a big proponent of Cattle Active, and you guys use that there at the Feedyard in Graham. Can you share a little bit more about that, about Cattle Active, and how that helps with getting cattle started on feed intake or getting water in once they arrive?
So we use Cattle Active in a lot and in different forms. I mean, we use the tubs and also the drench products, and we also use it in our feed, in our starter feed. And but I mean, basically what the product does is a pH balancer for the gut, and then obviously anyone that studies animal health and things like that know that the gut is an important part of the animal. I mean, it controls a lot of things. So it goes back to that, preparing that animal to accept vaccines, treatments, things like that. We think that is an added benefit, to allow that animal to accept those things and to succeed once, after it's given.
Yeah. What made you was that a decision that you made? Was that something that was kind of already in place when you came to Grant? Like when you started this role as general manager, was already in place, or what got you going with Cattle Active? Like, how'd you make that decision?
So we used it here. For kind of as long as I can remember. Riding, as when I started and rode pins for a lot of years. A lot of the things that we do are just based off of those years for me. As far as what I saw, in approaching doctoring or using any kind of products. Seeing those things every single day. It formulates these, what I would call protocols in your mind, and to see the benefits and know things. Because when you treat animals and when you're doing all this stuff, you really don't know. You really don't know what you're treating. If someone tells you that calf has histophilus, they could it could be right. It could be, but 99% of the animal you cut open is going to test for all of that stuff. So everything that you can think of, it usually will come back on those tests. But you really don't know what you're treating. So when you do it every single day and you ride and you look, it just becomes a second nature, or like a gut feeling. Basically, is like, oh, I've seen that before and I did this, or I've seen these cattle come in and they look like this, and so I did this, or what have you. And for us, a recurring thing was using those Cattle Active tubs and things on a lot of deals. So we just basically started doing it on most everything.
Yeah. And so how do you measure the return on investment in Cattle Active, your receiving protocols in terms of whatever, depending on the group, the vaccines you're giving them? Like, how are you all measuring ROI on that?
Today, I would say it's probably one of the easiest things to measure, because when you're preconditioning cattle at what they cost today, if you save 1 to 2 animals, it's going to pay for anything you believe in, basically, that you're giving them. It's going to pay for it very quickly. If you save 1 or 2 animals, it's going to pay for it, no doubt. So I would say you wouldn't even have to pull your pencil out, I don't think, on that. As far as what the worth is, because you get an $1,800 animal in, you'd be throwing everything you can to try to make that thing live.
Absolutely. I was talking to another cattle feeder over in West Texas, like last week or the week before, or something like that. And for the record, Austin, I have to use the pencil and paper because I'm not great at mental math. So I've got to sit down and write it down. But I was talking to this other feeder, and we were just talking about, the pure cost of them, like one animal. That's such a huge hit to your pocketbook that you want to do everything you can to keep them, right? And so, that's a big testament to doing the right things at the right time. Looking into the future in your crystal ball, what do you see on the horizon for cattle feeders this year and maybe the next couple years? Do you have your crystal ball there in the office with you?
I have to go find it, but no, shoot. It's just I'd say a mixed bag of opinions. I just, some days I think we still got a long way to go. We got a lot more highs to hit, and then some days I'd say I start to see a little bit of fear or worry as far as, is this the end of it? Or I'd like to personally just kind of camp out where we're at and just ride it for a little while. But and anybody in this industry knows. They know you got to keep going. You can't just stop. You got to keep things going. But just manage risk and hope that it doesn't just fall out of bed on us.
I'm a cow-calf lady, and I would be okay with just parking it here for just, a long while. I'm okay with this. I mean, I hate to say I don't necessarily need to see it go higher because that sounds like blasphemous, but it's not bad right now. So yeah, you're right. I don't want to fall out of bed like what you said. Do you have any advice you can offer other feed yard managers or cattle feeders, or maybe cow-calf owners who are, just looking ahead?
Just going back to like my background of working in every area, I mean, I would encourage, those guys to go spend some time, spend a day with your feed crew, or spend a day in a feed truck, or if you haven't, and see some of those things, and spend a day horseback with your pen riders or what have you. I mean, there's so much value in it that I think, that would be my advice. If you kind of miss that step or miss that, went straight into a management role. I mean, just taking some time and going out there and doing that, you may pick up small things that could help you.
That's pretty good advice. That's a really good point. I just thought of something else. So you see your words, you said you see some of these sale barn cattle come in that have just been, that haven't been weaned 45 days or not, they've just been, for lack of a better term, they've been stripped and shipped, right? And then you get cattle that have been, preconditioned. They've gone through a weaning program. Maybe they're bunk broke. Can you offer advice to anybody who is looking at, I just want to sell them. I don't need to wean them 45 days or 60 days. I just want to get them out of here and get my paycheck. Can you offer advice to someone who is weighing that, like doing their own preconditioning program before they send them to a yard for you, and how that looks profitability wise? Can you offer some insight on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say in this area, it's a tough like discussion, because the way we sell cattle down here. I mean, I don't know if people have been around the sales down in this area, but we sell cattle one by one. I mean, it doesn't matter if you have a group of 40, you bring 40 to the sale barn, or 400. They do group up a few and sell a few drafts, but majority of the cattle are sold one by one, and it's for several reasons. I mean, most people don't have a lot. Everybody down here has 30 or 40 cows, and then also people leave their bulls year round out and things like that. So you'll have a 6-weight and a 3-weight. I mean, you can't match those up, and so for different reasons. So it's a difficult conversation because people they're not marketable as a group. So like taking them to the sale barn is easier, and also there's because of the groups not being marketable in big lots and things like that. The values, a lot of times there's not a lot of added benefit at these sale barns for even castrating your bulls, calves. A lot of places, like right now with the way the market is, I mean, they're giving the same money for bulls that they are steers. And a lot of people down here prefer the bulls because they know they're the first person to get them. And so instead of getting, somebody that tried to wean cattle and didn't know what they were doing, or just had a rough go with them, and now they're getting the second-hand cattle, so like it's a hard discussion down here, but I would say if you know how to do it and what you're doing, then it's definitely going to be something that you could get added value and pay for. But if you don't know how to do it, just take them off and sell them. That you're going to come out better. You're going to come out better that way.
That is a perspective I did not. I've not been to a sale barn in South Texas, so I did not know that. Even if you bring a group of 40, that they're going to be marketed one by one or in much smaller groups. So that I definitely didn't know that, but that's got to make for a long sale day if that's how they're getting marketed. So
fall is a long days and long nights.
It's time for our famous 3.
Well, we've got to the point of our episode here where I asked the same 3 questions to every guest at the end of our episode. And I gave Austin a heads up on these so he's not getting, out of left field on them. So, Austin, what is your favorite beef or cattle related resource? It could be a nutritionist, an extension website, a book. At one point, I had a guest who said his favorite beef resource was his wife because she managed like the genetics and the nutrition, and he did like the data and the marketing and that kind of stuff. So I'm curious to hear what your favorite beef or cattle related resource is.
I mean, the probably the thing I read the most would be on, I think it's on like Farm Progress. They this guy, his name's Doug Ferguson. He writes an article on there. And I really, like his philosophies, and I've actually been to his class. And
okay.
But I keep up with him and his articles every week, and that's probably my favorite thing to read.
Yeah, I have read his stuff too. Yeah. So I think I follow him on Twitter also, or X, whatever it is these days. So,
all right.
Okay. So what is your favorite non-beef or cattle related book, or one that you're currently reading?
So, I mean, first off, I would say the Bible for sure. I mean, I'm a huge believer and man of faith. And I mean, that's where all the answers are that you have. So I would say that for sure. But as far as the book, my favorite probably is called Can't Hurt Me, and it's by David Goggins. I don't know if you know him, but he was a Navy SEAL and did all these kind of what people would call crazy things. He had a terrible childhood, but kind of tells his story and everything that he did, and it's about mindset and things like that. So I'm big into that kind of stuff, and so I would say that's probably my favorite book.
Okay. Mindset that's really important for sure. But I hadn't heard of that. I feel like I recognize that name, but I hadn't heard of that book. So I'll have to do a little bit deeper looking into that. So, okay. And then the last one is, when you think of someone that you admire or look up to, what's a characteristic they have that has led them to be successful?
So I would say just, a characteristic would be like drive or being driven, every day to get up and do, a job or whatever it may be, just having the drive to do it, 100% every single day, and not let the little things slip. I would say that's probably my number one favorite characteristic is just of anyone, is just a drive, just being driven.
That's really important. You mentioned the little things there, and like, you see people say, oh, don't sweat the small stuff or the little things, but like the little things can add up to really big things when you're doing them daily and really focusing on them. So that's a really good aspect in my opinion. So, well, that is all the questions and time we have for today, Austin. I just want to thank you so much for taking time out of what I know is a really busy schedule to join us. We really appreciate that. If listeners have questions for you, want to learn more about our discussion or about your work at Graham, where can they do that?
They can email me, and my email is austin@grahamfeedyard.com.
Thank you again, Austin, for being here. We really appreciate it. Thank you to Pro Earth Animal Health for sponsoring this episode. And to our audience, thank you for tuning in, and we'll meet you back here next week on the Beef Podcast.
Thank you.